I need to read the names file to make sure I don't reuse any of them. I've already seen the list. Claire, Daniel, Patricia, Simone, Nora, Marcus, Mom, Dad, so I'll pick completely different names. The monitor next to my bed wouldn't stop beeping. I kept staring at the ceiling tiles. One of them had a water stain shaped like a question mark, and I remember thinking that was either the universe being poetic or me losing it from the morphine. Probably both. I had my phone in my hand. My IV line kept catching on the bed rail every time I moved, and I was reading the same text from my brother over and over, the words not quite landing the way words are supposed to land. Just let us know when you're discharged. We've got a lot going on this week. I'd been in the hospital for 11 hours at that point. I had a ruptured ovarian cyst that had caused internal bleeding. The ER doctor used the phrase, "We got to you just in time," and then walked away before I could ask what that meant exactly, what the alternative looked like, whether just in time meant hours or minutes. I didn't have anyone there to ask on my behalf. I was alone in that room, in a hospital gown that tied in the back and didn't quite close, reading a text from my brother about how he had a lot going on this week. I want to tell this story the right way, because it's easy to jump to the ending, and the ending is satisfying, I promise you that. But if I don't explain how we got there, you won't understand why what I did didn't feel like cruelty. It felt like the first honest thing I'd done in years. So let me back up. My name is Brooke. I'm 31 years old. I work in healthcare administration. Specifically, I manage billing and contracts for a mid-sized hospital network in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am, by every external measure, fine. I have a one-bedroom apartment I actually like. I have a savings account with a real number in it. I have a cat named Potato who hates everyone except me, and I respect that about him. What I also have, or had until about 8 months ago, was a financial arrangement with my family that I'm embarrassed to say I let go on for almost 6 years. My parents are not bad people in the way that makes a clean story. They didn't hit us. They didn't disappear. My dad worked the same factory job for 22 years and got laid off when I was 19, right when I started college on a partial scholarship. My mom has fibromyalgia, real, diagnosed, documented, and stopped working when I was in middle school. I grew up understanding that money was tight, that we didn't complain, that you helped family because that's what family did. I have one sibling. My brother Kevin is 4 years older than me. Kevin is. I need to say this carefully. Kevin is the kind of person who has always had a reason. There's always a reason why the job didn't work out, why the lease fell through, why the timing wasn't right. He's not lazy in an obvious way. He's just never quite gotten traction, and somewhere along the way, our family decided that was a condition rather than a choice. When I graduated college and got my first real job, I started helping. It was small at first. I covered my parents' car insurance because my dad's credit had tanked after the layoff and the rate was brutal. Then it was the electric bill one month when things were short. Then it became the electric bill, full stop, every month. Then Kevin moved back home and the grocery bill went up, so I started doing a monthly transfer for household expenses. Then my dad's truck needed a transmission and I had money in savings, so I covered it, telling myself I'd be paid back, knowing I wouldn't. By the time I was 28, I was sending home $1,400 a month. That was my parents' electric and water bill, their internet, Kevin's cell phone plan, under my account, a mistake I made when he said he couldn't qualify for his own, the household grocery contribution, and what my mom called incidentals, which was a rotating category that somehow always totaled between $200 and $300. I also had Kevin on my car insurance because he'd lost his license briefly a few years back. A whole other story, and when he got it reinstated, the rates under his own name were astronomical. He said it would only be temporary. That was 3 years before any of this happened. I'm not telling you this to sound like a martyr. I'm telling you because I need you to understand what my family had come to see as normal. My contribution wasn't a gift anymore. It had become infrastructure. It was load-bearing. And nobody, not my dad, not my mom, not Kevin, ever said thank you in a way that suggested they understood it was something I was choosing to give, rather than something I was choosing to acquire to provide. The cyst had been bothering me for about 3 weeks before it ruptured. I'd had ovarian cysts before. My gynecologist and I had an ongoing, exhausting relationship with them. But this one felt different. Heavier. I'd scheduled an appointment and then rescheduled it because work was insane that month, and I will never stop thinking about that decision. I was at work when it happened. The pain hit so fast and so completely that I slid out of my office chair onto the floor and just stayed there for a second, not understanding what my body was doing. My coworker Jess found me, called 911, rode in the ambulance with me because I couldn't reach anyone in my family on short notice. My dad doesn't keep his phone on, my mom takes a while to respond, and Kevin, I found out later, had seen my call and didn't pick up because he thought I was calling about the insurance bill. At the hospital, they figured out what was happening pretty quickly. Internal bleeding, emergency intervention, the works. Jess stayed until they took me back, squeezed my hand in that specific way people do when they don't know what else to offer, and then had to go back to work. I told her to go. She'd already done more than my family had. I came out of the procedure around 7 p.m. I had a drain and an IV and a level of exhaustion that I can only describe as my body having used up every reserve it had. I reached for my phone, 12 texts. I thought, for 1 second, one embarrassing second, they came. They had not come. The 12 texts were a thread in my family group chat. My dad had written, around 2 p.m., Brooke's in the hospital, pray for her. My mom had responded with 3 prayer hands emoji. Kevin had written, what happened? My dad wrote, something with her stomach. She's in surgery. Kevin wrote, okay. Then, about 40 minutes later, Kevin wrote, hey, when you're out, can you add data to my line? It's been slow. Then my mom, feel better, baby. Then my dad, around 5 p.m., you doing okay? Then Kevin again, the text I'd already seen, just let us know when you're discharged. We've got a lot going on this week. I set the phone down on the tray table. The monitor kept beeping. A nurse came in and checked my drain and said I was doing well, and I said thank you, automatically the way I always say thank you, and she left. I picked the phone back up and I called my dad. He answered on the 3rd ring. I could hear the television in the background. Hey babe, how you feeling? I'm okay, I said. I had internal bleeding. They had to do an emergency procedure. Yeah, your uncle had something like that. Well, not exactly, but stomach stuff. You know how it goes. I waited. I thought maybe someone would come, I said. I tried to say it lightly. I don't think it came out lightly. Brooke, it's a 3-hour drive. And your mother can't sit in a car that long, you know that. And Kevin? Well, Kevin's dealing with some stuff right now. What stuff? There was a pause. He and Amber broke up. He's pretty torn up about it. Kevin and Amber had been on and off for 2 years. I had heard about every cycle of it. I said nothing. You're okay though, right? My dad said. They said you're okay. They said I got there just in time. Well, good. That's good. Hey, listen. The electric bill's going to be higher this month. I think the heat pump's not running right. I just wanted to give you a heads up before you saw the transfer request. I lay in that hospital bed, tubes in my arm, and I said, okay, Dad. You get some rest, he said. Let us know when you're home. I hung up. I didn't sleep much that night. Hospitals aren't designed for sleep. There's always a check, always a beep, always someone rolling something past your door at 3 a.m. But even in the quiet stretches, I wasn't sleeping. I was thinking. I was thinking about the first time I ever missed a payment on something because I'd overextended to help them and miscalculated my own budget. I was thinking about the vacation I didn't take 3 years ago because I felt guilty spending money on myself when they were short. I was thinking about Kevin's phone line on my account, which I paid $47 a month for, and Kevin couldn't pick up when I called because he assumed it was about a bill. I was thinking about the year I asked my dad, very gently, whether Kevin could start contributing something to the household, even $200 a month. Because I'd taken on a new car payment and things were tight for me. And my dad had said, "He's going through a rough patch, Brooke. He's your brother." As if the fact of being my brother was a sufficient answer. I was thinking about all of it, lying there in the dark, and something that had been built up over years, something compacted and calcified, started to shift. I want to be precise about what this feeling was, because I think people expect it to be rage. It wasn't rage. Rage would have been easier. It was something quieter. It was the specific feeling of seeing something clearly for the first time, not because the thing had changed, but because you had. My family loved me in the way they were capable of loving me. I understood that. But their love had a structure, and in that structure, I was a resource. I was the one who had made it out. And having made it out, I was now expected to pull everyone else up indefinitely, without timeline, without reciprocity, without anyone ever asking if I was okay. Not at 3 a.m. in a hospital bed with a drain in my side, not ever. And the thing was, I had let them. For 6 years, I had let them. Because it was easier than the conversation. Because I loved them. Because I kept thinking the rough patch would end. I got discharged the next afternoon. Jess came and picked me up. She helped me get settled at home and stocked my fridge from the grocery store and didn't make me talk about anything until I was ready. I want to put that here because she deserves to be in this story. I gave myself 2 weeks before I did anything. This was deliberate. I'd read enough things, talked to enough people in my own head to know that decisions made from a hospital bed are sometimes decisions you need to let breathe. So I went home. I recovered. I watched a lot of television. Kevin texted once to ask how I was feeling, and I said fine, and that was the whole conversation. My mom called twice. Both times she spent most of the call telling me about her own symptoms, which she does because she's anxious about her health, and talking about mine makes her think about her own mortality. I understood the mechanism, I just couldn't hold it for her anymore. 2 weeks after I got home, I sat down on my kitchen table with a notepad, and I wrote down every financial connection I had to my family. It took up most of the page. Electric and water, auto pay for my account, set up in my name because my parents' credit made it difficult for them to hold utilities. I was the account holder. Internet, same situation, different utility. Kevin's phone line listed under my family plan, which I'd opened at 26 because the rate was better. Kevin's car insurance, same policy as mine, added as an occasional driver 3 years ago, never removed. My parents' car insurance, a separate policy I paid monthly. Monthly household transfer, $600, standing order every first of the month. Incidentals, variable, sent whenever my mom texted me a specific way. I looked up this list for a long time. Then I called the financial advisor I'd been meaning to see for 2 years, made an appointment for the following week, and started doing research. Here's what I learned because I was the account holder on the utilities. I could change them. I could transfer the accounts to my parents' names or simply close them. The credit issue was their problem to solve, not a permanent condition I was obligated to manage. I could remove Kevin from my phone plan with 30 days' notice. I could remove him from my insurance policy at renewal, which was in 6 weeks. I could stop the standing transfer anytime. The incidentals had never been automated. Those were choices I made each time. I had built a cage and called it love and handed them the key, and the door had always swung inward. I didn't do everything at once, I want to be clear about that. What I did was methodical. I started with a letter. I drafted it 4 times. The final version was not long, about 3 paragraphs, and it said, simply, that I would be making changes to our financial arrangement over the next 60 days, that I wanted to give them time to make other arrangements, that I loved them and this was not about punishment. I mailed it. I also texted my dad and said to check the mail this week. 3 days later, my dad called. "Brooke, what is this?" Not a question. A statement with a question mark forced onto it. "It's what it says," I told him. "I'm not able to keep going the way we've been going. I should have said something a long time ago. I'm saying it now. You're talking about pulling everything. The lights, the internet, Kevin's phone. I'm giving you 60 days. Your mother is sick. You know she needs. I know. And she'll have 60 days to get things in her own name or find assistance programs. I've already looked some up for you. I'll send the links. There was a long pause. My dad's voice, when he came back, was different, harder. I don't know where this is coming from. You've never said anything was a problem. I know, I said. That's my part in this. I should have. Kevin is 35 years old. Silence. I've sent the letter, I said. I mean, what's in it? I love you, Dad. I hung up. Kevin called 20 minutes later. He did not open with hello. Are you serious right now? Yes. My phone is on your plan. You can't just. I can, actually. I gave 60 days notice in the letter. I can't get a plan. My credit. There are prepaid options. Mint Mobile, Visible, a few others. You don't need good credit. I'll text you the links. Brooke. His voice shifted into something I recognized, the tone he used when he was about to make me feel like I was being unreasonable. I just got out of a relationship. I'm dealing with a lot. This isn't the time. And there it was. The reason. There was always a reason. Kevin, I said. I had surgery 3 weeks ago. I was alone in the hospital. You texted me to add data to your phone line. He didn't say anything. I'm not doing this out of anger, I said. I'm just done. My mom called the next day and cried. This was the hardest call. I love my mother. Her help is genuinely difficult. I sat on my bathroom floor for that call. I don't know why the bathroom, something about the acoustics, the small space. And I let her cry and I said, I know, Mom, and I know this is scary, and I'm sending you information about utility assistance through the county. And there's a program through the state for people with chronic illness. I had printed out the information. I read her the phone number. I don't understand why you're doing this, she kept saying. Because I was in a hospital bed, I told her. And I realized I had been disappearing slowly for years and nobody had noticed, and I can't keep doing that. She cried more. I held the phone and looked at the grout between the bathroom tiles. I love you, I said, but I have to love myself too. Here is what happened over the following 60 days. My parents, faced with the actual mechanics of the situation, figured it out. They were able to get the electric and water transferred. It took some paperwork, and my dad called me 3 times in a panic about the credit check. And I walked him through the process each time, because I had said this wasn't about punishment, and I meant it. The utility company has programs for customers with lower credit scores. They got approved. The internet took longer. They ended up going with a different provider, a smaller regional one, and the rate was higher, but it was theirs. Kevin did not get a prepaid phone plan. Kevin went on a plan under his girlfriend before Amber's phone account, which told me more than I needed to know about that situation. I removed him from mine at the 30-day mark, as I'd stated. I removed him from my car insurance at renewal. My rate went down $41 a month. I stopped the standing transfer. I stopped the incidentals. I opened a high-yield savings account with the money I was suddenly keeping, and I set up an automatic transfer into it for $1,400 a month, which was what I had been sending home. I won't lie and tell you it was clean. My dad went quiet for about 3 weeks. Not angry, just quiet, which in some ways was harder. My mom texted sporadically, mostly updates about her health, which I responded to. Kevin blocked me on Instagram, which I found out from a cousin who thought I'd want to know. I did not block him back. I left the door technically open and chose not to walk through it. About 4 months after all of this, I used some of that saved money to take a trip. Nothing dramatic. I went to Asheville for a long weekend, stayed at a small inn, ate at restaurants where I ordered whatever I wanted without doing math in my head, walked around and looked at things and thought about nothing in particular. On the last morning, I sat outside with coffee and I thought about the ceiling tile in the hospital room. The water stain shaped like a question mark. I'd spent a lot of time since then trying to figure out what the question was, what it was the universe, or my fever-adjacent brain had been asking. I think the question was, when does taking care of yourself count as love? I didn't have a clean answer. I'm not sure clean answers exist for things like this. But I think somewhere in the act of sitting outside in the mountains with coffee I'd paid for with money that was entirely mine, I stopped waiting for permission to treat my own life as something worth protecting. My dad texted me that afternoon. Just, hope you're doing well. I stared at it for a while. Then I wrote back, I am. Hope you are too. And I meant both of those things. Fully, without asterisks. There's a version of this story where I tell you my family came around, that my brother apologized, that we had a reckoning and it was painful but honest, and now we understand each other. That version doesn't exist yet. Maybe it never will. What I can tell you is that I'm 31 years old and I sleep without my phone in the bedroom now because I got tired of the 11 p.m. texts about incidentals, and the silence has been one of the better decisions I've made. Potato sits on my feet while I work from home. I bought myself a good coffee maker last fall. I have a trip planned for the spring. Actual planning with flights booked, not something I'll cancel because someone's transmission blew. I'm not healed. I don't think that's quite the right frame. I'm just more honest with myself than I used to be about what I was doing and why, and what it was costing me. That feels like enough for now. I've thought a lot about why it took a hospital bed to finally make me see clearly. I wasn't naive. I knew on some level what was happening. I knew Kevin wasn't going to pay me back. I knew the rough patches didn't have an end date. I knew my parents had stopped asking how I was doing and started asking when the transfer would hit. I knew all of it. I just kept choosing not to know it, which is its own kind of decision and one I had to reckon with honestly before I could move forward. That's the part nobody talks about when they tell stories like mine. The other person's behavior is easy to be angry about. What's harder is sitting with the fact that you participated, not because you're weak, not because you're stupid, but because love is genuinely confusing when it grows up tangled with obligation. I learned early that helping my family was what good daughters did. I never questioned whether there was a version of that lesson that could be taken too far, because questioning it felt disloyal. And so I didn't question it for 6 years. What Jess did for me. Showing up, riding in the ambulance, stocking my fridge, not asking for anything in return, was so simple. It wasn't dramatic. She just acted like my well-being was worth something. And the contrast between that and what I'd gotten from my own family while I was bleeding internally was so stark that it broke something open in me that I don't think could have been broken any other way. I think that's how it usually works. It's rarely one moment that changes you. It's the accumulation. Years of small moments where you swallowed something that should have been said, and then one moment where the accumulation finally becomes visible. The text from Kevin about the data plan was that moment for me. It didn't make me angry. It made everything quiet. In the way that things get quiet right before you understand something you should have understood a long time ago. What I did afterward wasn't revenge. I want to be precise about that. I didn't enjoy causing disruption. I felt guilty about my mom's calls for weeks. But I understood eventually that there's a difference between cruelty and honesty, and that the most honest thing I could do, for all of us, was stop pretending the arrangement was sustainable. Pretending wasn't protecting them. It was just postponing reality and costing me everything in the meantime. Removing Kevin from my phone plan, stopping the transfers, reclaiming my insurance policy, none of it fixed the relationship. Some things don't get fixed, but every action has consequences that travel in both directions. When I stopped absorbing all of theirs, I had to start facing my own. The discomfort of boundaries, the grief of a family that looked different than I wanted it to, the work of figuring out who I was when I wasn't defined by what I provided. That work turned out to be worth doing. I'm still doing it. I don't think it ends. But I know the difference now between love that builds you up and love that quietly hollows you out. And I know which one I'm willing to settle for.